I think if you aren't people first, especially in the healthcare sector, then you're not going to be successful, right? I think I've had a lot of conversations with my team about, when you make decisions based on solely business, you're unlikely to put people first and you're unlikely to then be successful. But if you make those decisions based on the human, the integrity piece first, the business is going to come, right? So maybe you take an L once on a couple things from a business perspective, knowing full well you're doing the right thing from a human and person perspective, and it's going to come back to you from a business perspective later on, right? And I think that's the mindset you got to have.
You mentioned integrity. In business, there's always that moment where you have to choose between doing what's actually right and doing what's easy. Have you found yourself in those crossroads where you had to make those decisions?
Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, integrity over everything. Like, I think if you maintain that integrity over everything, the business part is going to come. And I think understanding when you make those decisions based on integrity, people take notice, and maybe you can lean on those networks or leverage those relationships later on, depending on what the situation might be, if it's a client or a community partner. But integrity over everything, if you make a decision based on that, I think the business part is going to come for you.
Some people build businesses and some build movements. Today's guest, Joel, isn't just running a healthcare company. He's redefining what care actually looks like. From hands-on patient to leading a company that's shaken up the industry, he's got the heart, the hustle, and the story to match. Joel, welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you for having me. Great opportunity.
Listen, I'm excited. We just kind of talked about it. The energy's already there, even though it's early in the morning for both of us.
Yes.
I don't even know. How early is it for you?
10 a.m. I'm on my
we're on the same time
second
frame.
coffee.
You're in Canada.
Second coffee. We're ready to go, my friend.
Second, listen, I gave up coffee. I'm just drinking a little bit of tea, man, a little tea. A little vanilla chai tea, by the way.
There you go.
I always love to start with the moment of realization before you were leading, before the big vision. Was there a moment in your career where you thought, I need to do something bigger?
Yeah, I wouldn't say specifically like a moment. I know my background is clinical, right? So I started, I have a master's in occupational therapy. So I was an occupational therapist for a number of years. And then I transferred into the public sector. And I remember at one point being like, oh, you know what? I think I actually want to be a manager. Like, I think I want to help manage a team and group of people. And I think part of that was being able to maybe impart change on a more macro level, right? And then I got the opportunity with Spark to kind of come in and in my head be the leader that I thought I could become in a pretty quick timeline. So that was a huge opportunity for me to kind of seize, and that's really the point where, okay, I think I can impart change now at a bigger scale, right? And that was a big motivating factor.
I'll give you a follow-up to that, man. You just mentioned therapist, a CEO.
Yeah.
I mean, not a directly exactly straight line career path, but what was that transition like for you? You're going from a therapist, man, where it's probably a little bit more not as stressful, and now you're a CEO. You're the head of the table. How does that feel? What was that transition like?
Yeah. I think it actually, my work as a clinician really helped me. I think naturally as clinicians, you're empathetic. You have good interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence in these, situations that might call for it. So I think naturally it was good for me to kind of look at it, use those skills that I had as a clinician in my leadership role. I think I just had a knack for like the operations piece and understanding how to get things done in a really efficient way. I think that's just something I've always done. So it was honestly, I don't want to say seamless, but it was with its challenges, but it just came naturally to me. I really like that transition piece. And now that I've gotten into the role specifically, there's not a moment where I feel like I'm over my head. I just acknowledge my gaps in knowledge that I have because of my clinical background, and I embrace them. And I look to kind of seek more knowledge to kind of help fill those gaps and improve myself in my role.
I love it, man. Do you think there was anything that people assume about being a CEO that is completely not true?
Yeah, that you're not approachable, I guess. Like we had I had a cold call interview with someone one time, and it was someone at the company, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm meeting the CEO," and I was like, "It's just a title. Like, I'm probably
Yeah.
the least intimidating person, at least I tried to be." So I think that you're not approachable. Like, it's just a title. I'm still a person, and you try to be approachable to not only any community partners but your own team, and kind of, like you said, you got to be your organic self. And if that's the
Yeah.
case and you're approachable normally, then the title shouldn't matter, right?
Yeah, I think it's a funny thing, and that's why I love just to have these conversations with leaders because it goes to show like the leader, right? We're having fun. Earlier, I mentioned that I was with another leader yesterday, and just he's laughing, he's having a good time. I mean, the dude's been in CEO for 30 plus years, and probably doesn't get that ability to have those conversations or just kind of be open and just be themselves because people think that because they are a CEO or president that they got to walk some way, they got to dress, a certain way. Matter of fact, yesterday he shows up, he's like, normally I'm in a suit and tie, but I feel comfortable today. And I'm like, and we should because we are
Yeah.
humans. And even
I
I
got a
love it. This is how you
sweater.
came to me last
I
time.
got
Just,
Spark branded sweater. I'm comfy. I'm good
come
to
on
go.
with the
Yeah.
sweater. Listen, man, a lot of companies, they actually, and I'm pretty sure you've experienced this, where they say they claim to be people first, but a lot of people really don't live it. What does that actually look like for Spark Lifecare?
To be people driven first.
People first. Yep.
Yeah, I think if you aren't people first, then especially in the healthcare sector, then you're not going to be successful, right? I think I've had a lot of conversations with my team about, when you make decisions based on solely business, you're unlikely to put people first, and you're unlikely to then be successful. But if you make those decisions based on the human, the integrity piece first, the business is going to come, right? So maybe you take an L once on a couple things from a business perspective, knowing full well you're doing the right thing from a human and person perspective, and it's going to come back to you from a business perspective later on, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
the mindset you got to have.
And you mentioned integrity. In business, there's always that moment where you have to choose between doing what's actually right and doing what's easy. Have you found yourself in those crossroads where you had to make those decisions?
Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, integrity over everything. Like, I think if you maintain that integrity over everything, the business part is gonna come. And I think understanding, you know, when you make those decisions based on integrity, people take notice, and maybe you can lean on those networks or leverage those relationships later on, depending on what the situation might be, if it's a client or a community partner. But integrity over everything. If you make a decision based on that, I think the business part is going to come for you.
I love this. And then when you think about a leader like yourself, always wants to make sure to hire great talent, people that really, I wouldn't say are just like you, but you see something in them. What is it that you see in them when you bring them onto the team? What is that special thing?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? I think the more I have been in this leadership role, the more I'm kind of looking at identifying the subtle things. You have the hard skills and the soft skills. I think one of the things I look for is just critical thinking, like more macro level awareness of the situation. Someone who understands their gaps in their knowledge and is open with those things, doesn't kind of pretend that they're not, shows me that their willingness to learn and communicate those things. Their ceiling as a leader within my organization is higher than someone who isn't open, isn't kind of communicating those discrepancies as much. So that's one thing I always look for, is that macro level kind of metacognition, so to speak, of where they're at and where they want to go, what they know, what they don't. And it's hard to tease that out in an interview, let me tell you.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being in the hiring role, right? And I would say it was never really that easy. It's somewhat easy, but then not, because they portray one thing at times and then they come and become something different. But then I hear, that it's just people are different. They don't have the work ethics that we have back then, right? We were ready to work at 15 years old and hustle and make our own money. And I don't know if it's the same way, if people give that same passion to what they actually do. So I can only imagine, man, there's definitely some things to go through. But I actually want to know, Your time in Spark, is there one thing that really stands out to you that you were just so happy that was a success for you that you still kind of happy for today?
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any one thing, honestly. I think getting into this role and understanding it's new for me, it's new, like from an operations point of view, from a leadership point of view. And seeing the success we've had as a group over the past 2 years, and you kind of start, okay, the foundation that we laid, 18 months ago, is now finally coming to fruition, and the team is realizing it. And, now it's just further that motivation. So it's cool to see when you plant the foundation and you adopt these new strategies or these new models. It's cool to see, the initial doubt that people might have, because it's change, and change is always hard. But when it finally comes to fruition, they're like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." Like that's a cool, reaffirmation of what the decisions you made as a leader, and that's pretty exciting.
Was there a moment in your career thus far that you just had that like oh shit moment where you realize that you weren't prepared for something?
Um, yeah, I'm sure a lot of those moments. I think clinically, there's always a lot of those. Like I find, um, when I was a clinician, I had an experience with individuals with traumatic brain injuries. So you would go in, you'd have plan A, B, C clinically for that individual, and then you know the the shit just hit the fan. I don't know if I can say that word, but that
Yeah,
and
you
then
can say it. You can say
you
it.
gotta like go to plan D, E, F, and you kind of think on your toes and be flexible. Um, in the CEO role, I would say those moments aren't as frequent, thankfully.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more, you understand what the demands are going to be every single day, but clinically it happens a lot. And I think that has helped me. It's like, well, you know what? This person's life isn't on the line. And so it kind of puts things in perspective based on your other experiences.
Well, when building a strong network, you mentioned building strong networks and teams.
Mhm.
Is there's been a mentor during this journey that really kind of instilled this in you, or still kind of instilling their wisdom in you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of individuals that I'm pulling from. The founder of Spark itself has been a great mentor for me. Um, I think leveraging your network and the different leaders that you might have known about have been great. I've had some great managers in the past that have really pulled parts of their management and leadership style from. Even I've had some people, I have managers for like 12 months, but I've pulled a lot of skills and brought a lot of the things that they've imparted in me with me than
Mhm.
managers I've had for like 5 or 6 years sometimes, right? So it's all about, I think, the different leaders that have imprinted on you, and then also discovering who you are and what kind of leader that you want to be over time too.
That's a huge, difference when you have a leader that truly cares and is really pouring into you, and realizing that they're helping you grow, because ideally they may not want to be in that position forever, right? They want to grow as well. They want to go elsewhere. So the best way to do is actually, grow those under you. So I love that you found people that had no ego, had no pride, and was willing to give you all the knowledge possible to make you successful. And I kind of want to talk about something, because you told me you had some health issues that were happening while you were still running the company. While most people would have really stepped away, probably permanently, what really kept you going?
Yeah, it actually was even before I was in the current leadership position. So most of my leadership roles have happened after that in healthcare, right?
Mm,
So um, what what kept me going is more so, I guess, two things. One, in being I'm in now this leadership role that I didn't have before. These opportunities really come to me that I feel like I want to reach for. Um,
mhm,
but I always said like the whole cancer experience was both motivating and grounding at the same time. So motivating in the sense that I need to make the most out of whatever time I have left on this earth, right? Should it be,
mhm.
knock on wood, everything's okay right now, but should it be
Yeah.
cut short, you need to make the most of and optimize who you could be as a leader and as a person professionally. And at the same time, very grounding in that really what truly matters is my friends, my family, my health, like those are the big things. So, um, that's kind of what it keeps me grounded, but also kind of really motivates me to kind of push myself.
If the Hart Hustle podcast has ever sparked any idea or made you think differently, do us a favor. Make sure to guys share this, post it on LinkedIn, or even text that nonprofit friend that you just have. Whatever works, this is what keeps the conversation going and allows us to just grow this community together. Seriously, we appreciate you. Do you think there's a different Joel now than before? Before the experience of cancer and not the unknown, do you think that it changed your life a little bit?
1,000,000%. Yeah, I remember I was in the first couple meetings when I got back, and someone who I had maybe crossed paths with professionally a couple times, an older gentleman, he said to me, it really kind of imprinted on me. He said to me, okay, so now you're discovering your new journey now. And like, that was like, wow, okay. Like I'm definitely never going to be the same. Right. I think you carry with you your whatever traumas or experiences, and they help shape you. So that was a pretty big one. So I think it's always going to have an impact on me, and you just got to take whatever lemonade you can make from the lemons you may have received, and keep drinking it, and find those silver linings wherever you can.
If I was to ask you to sum up the experience that you had during that time, right? There was a pivot in your life. If you can just sum it up for people that may have going through experience or just need to hear some motivational words, what would that actually be?
Yeah, I think when you're in it, like you got to take it day by day. I think when you're, you can't really think too far forward, or else you're going to get just debilitating anxiety as far as what could be possible. And always just taking it one day at a time, like do what you can today to be better tomorrow. Whether that's eating healthy, going for a walk, seeing a therapist, those kind of things. I think that's what you can do in those situations. And I'm one of the fortunate ones. I was able to ring the bell. I was able to kind of continue to, live my life and continue to push professionally. But when you're in it, when you're in the trenches, so to speak, it was one day at a time. One day at a time. Some days are better than others, but just always take that step forward if you can.
I love it, man. And I'm glad that you were able to overcome that, right? Like you mentioned, not everyone has that ability. Not overcome it, man, but you truly are thriving now. Like, look where you're at,
Yeah.
and you're at a space where you get to help other people. When someone was there to help you and you had all these people helping you, it's almost how life really turns itself and puts you in a position that when someone was helping you, now you get to do that for others. And I can only imagine that you wanted to do that because you felt that need to, keep moving forward and help others on their journeys, whatever that journey looked like. And I ask you, do you have like plans for Spark? I want to be in the insight so that when it happens, we heard it here first.
Yeah.
A lot of the times we as leaders, we set out these goals. If I say, what's for Spark in the next 3 years, what does that actually sound like?
Yeah, I think the past 18 months, we've been really gearing operations towards scalability. I think our vision and mission has really crystallized over the past couple of years. And so at this point, we're poised for scale. We're poised for geographic scale. We got a couple pilot projects going on as far as scaling our model, our healthcare model upwards. And so that's really the goal. So in 3 years' time, I hope to be Canada wide, having multiple locations and still having the patient-centered, centralized quality oversight that I think makes us different, but being able to kind of service Greater Canada, maybe getting up to Florida, see Efren, and
Who knows?
the model itself,
I'm here.
it's super fluid. It kind of leads itself to that possibility. So that's how I see us going. We've kind of geared operations with that in mind. So it's an exciting time.
For listeners that are listening right now and watching this, let them know a little bit of what Spark has done for the community thus far and continues to do for the community.
Yeah, so Spark is the model itself is a matchmaker, right? So we're matchmaking healthcare seekers, people seeking healthcare services, with a network of healthcare providers. And so really our goal is to empower clients seeking services with choice, accessibility, it's a personalized match, and then empowering the healthcare providers by they can be leveraging our brand, they get paid top of market, and they can really kind of monetize themselves as a business themselves. So that's kind of been our model, is trying to connect those two and do it in a way that's fluid and scalable. Someone said to me in a meeting when I was networking once, they're like, okay, so you're like the eHarmony and the Uber of healthcare. And I'm like, I guess so. Like that if that's how you want to put it. But we match, and we always do, everything is in home. So we go to you, as the client. So
at least I didn't say like Plenty of Fish or anything.
Well, yeah. Tinder, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
I the funny thing is I've never experienced those apps, but I can see where they automatically, especially if someone's on it often, right? That's what they compare it to. It's always funny what people compare it to. It's like, I mean, I guess, but not really. Definitely didn't think about it when we were doing it.
Yeah, from a matching perspective, I get what you're saying, but not quite.
You can't just swipe left and swipe right. It doesn't work like that.
No.
How do you make sure that as you're growing, that you're just not losing that human first culture? Especially, you mentioned last time we spoke about AI, and people are thinking that using AI, you're losing that human first culture. I say no. I think it's a tool. I think it's a resource for people to really grow, right, without having to spend so much time on different things. But what is your thoughts on this? How do you not lose that human first approach and you implementing AI already?
Yeah, I think it's as long as you start and maintain the client experience as your baseline, right? Like, what does that look like? And in situations in which it would be beneficial from an operational or efficiency perspective to adopt an AI or tool or something like for automation without impacting that client experience, then it's a no-brainer, right? But in situations in which there might be an impact on that, then you have to have that consideration. Like, what's the offset? What's the ROI compared to the efficiency versus that client experience? But for us, it's always been trying to promote that client experience and then trying to delineate between, okay, well, what is not going to impact that we can just supremely optimize, right? Without adding to bottlenecks. But anything about the client experience that's one-to-one care is still going to be in person. It's still going to be human to human. So the operations around that and optimizing those and adopting those tools for AI would be what the focus would be then.
If you can have a AI buddy in your company, what would you want him to do? What does that look like for Spark?
Yeah, what I guess what are their limitations? Do I just have a little robot assistant that can just do everything for me? Because that would be sweet. No, I think we are already adopting a lot of different things from an automation perspective. We have different tech platforms realizing, electronic medical record, and I take every cold call about these AI platforms because this is just emerging, right? And if you're an early adopter and you find one that really kind of speaks to your model, it can be a game changer. So I've looked at different AI agents that would work on, billing automation or work on different integrations between our two platforms. I've looked at custom GPTs for Spark specifically, so I can upload the knowledge base of that GPT with all our policies and procedures and everything like that. And then all my employees or contractors or even clients can then reference that GPT for any information. And then there's no one required from an overhead perspective to taking time out of their day to provide that, right? So, I mean, that's a good example. It's like, well, the information is then super accessible for them, but there's no human element there. So, like, how do you offset that ROI and what's going to be more important for the client experience at that point?
Yeah, it's a very tricky place, man. I feel like we're seeing people be curious about it, but they're still, as we mentioned a little earlier, saying, well, I don't want to lose that human touch. And I'm like, but you won't. Like, it's up to you to really replace that human, ideally, right? Yeah. But what can you really do? I mean, I speak to people in the nonprofit and healthcare space, and we got people in the nonprofit space using it as for help for grant writers.
Oh, huge.
And what a big cost saving there, right? When you think about what you pay for a grant writer and is it good? But now if you teach somebody within your company, you actually keep that in, you're saving money, and you're also educating within. So I think people it's like anything. It's like new technology when the phones first came out, right? And it was a whole privacy safety thing. It's listening to us, all these different things. But come on, we're using phones. I was talking to a leader yesterday when floppy disk became a USB. People were a little nervous. What do you mean? What is this?
Yeah.
So it's all about just doing it and being comfortable with the uncomfortable because it's not going anywhere. If anything, we're going to get more super powerful AI tools. And you mentioned if I'm on board with one of them early on, it's going to be a game changer for the company. So I
Yeah.
definitely do agree.
Yeah. It's been great. Like when I first took over the operations piece, it was, you know, I want robots, and I remember like there was a big joke, like a running joke about, there was a joke with my team, like how many times I said bottleneck in a meeting and like automation, like robots, like this was like the running joke. And like change is hard for them. They've done
Yeah.
something a certain way. If it's manual, it's been manual, but they've done it a certain way for, 5-6 years. So when you come in and say that doesn't make sense, then they can push back. But I think a big thing I always asked them was, all right, if we were to 10x tomorrow, right? How would you be able to keep doing your job as you do it now? And if the answer is yes, cool. If the answer is no, why not? And then what are some strategies that we can kind of circle back to? And that's led to us exploring different automations, different, adoption of different tech or things like that to allow for that scalability, like I said. So we were able to kind of scale upwards in growth, but actually reduce our operational overhead because we've scaled we've adopted those strategies so much.
I love it, man. We're going to start out wrapping up here. But before we get to that great question, that blind question, if you had one piece of advice for someone trying to just make a difference in their industry, what would that advice sound like to them?
Yeah, I think it's funny when making a difference can be micro or macro. So I think oftentimes people are like, hey, I need to make this huge shift, right? I think my clinical background, we're looking at your day-to-day working with these individuals on their goals. What would seemingly be a small goal for someone, but you actually help them attain it, like dressing themselves again, for example, like means the absolute world to them, right? So I think just taking a step backwards a little bit and not focusing so much on, I need to make this huge macro impact on my sector, and being like, okay, how can I impart change for one person, one sector that's really meaningful to them subjectively? And then that is going to snowball, right? I think I've talked to you about that last time, is, the small little impacts that you have on your network of all these little interactions, just be kind and courteous and try to make a good impression on that one thing. They're all going to come back to you. You're all going to be able to leverage those later on. And so, yeah, focusing, I would say, try not to focus so much so on the macro, get focused more so on the micro of how you can impart a change in a small piece, and then it'll build from there.
And where can people find more information to learn more about what Spark Lifecare does, or even get involved?
Yeah, so you can follow us on all of our socials, hashtag SparkCares, our website, www.sparkcares.ca. We also have a nonprofit company, Spark University, which helps subsidize trainings and create resources for our frontline, any of the frontline or family caregivers. So sparku.ca would be that one.
Love it, man. And the blind question. So before we let you go, we've got a little tradition here. You get to leave a question for our next guest. They have no idea what the question is, but I have a question for you.
Okay.
And the question is, if you can go back in time and tell young Joel, the leader, some words of advice, what does that sound like?
Back in time and tell young Joel, the leader. Yeah, that's a good question. See, I like these blind questions. Now I gotta think a little more.
Say, man, I'd be like, oh, that's a really good question.
That's a really good question.
You really thought about it.
Yeah, mine's not that good. No. I think just be patient. I think I always felt I was always pushing myself for something more, right? Mm-hmm. Which is good. I think it's just a natural, innate thing in me. But I think just being patient with with your growth as a person and as a leader is important. Everyone wants what their dream jobs yesterday, so just being patient with yourself, continue to work on yourself, and eventually those opportunities are going to come. Eventually those opportunities based on the networking that you've done over the course of that career are going to come, and then just seize that opportunity when it comes up.
Appreciate it, man. And for your question to the next leader that we have on the podcast, what is that question?
Yeah. Next question is, if you had to pick someone that has inspired you as a leader, who would that be and why?
Okay. I like that. I got one more question actually that I just had just for the people that are listening. Spark Care, is it something that is just Canada based?
It is Canada based, right? As of now. Yeah. We're again, working on that scalability and expanding out into different geographic regions. I actually think the model itself is super fluid and would do well in the US, but as of right now, we're just Canada based.
Gotta put some time into it. I got it.
We gotta be patient, Efren. We gotta be patient.
There you go. That's what you tell young Joel, to be a little patient. Exactly. You still gotta find that right AI model per se.
That's right.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. Joel, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge, your experience, as well as your leadership with our viewers and listeners. Guys, if you're still watching, make sure that you guys do like, subscribe. Make sure that you guys check out what Spark is doing, especially if you're in that healthcare space. And be on the lookout, because I believe that Orlando does happen, or just the United States happen at some point. And what a great leader, Joel, to actually make it happen. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Ephraim, Hart Hustle Podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Appreciate it.